the foods that we're eating. So that is always my first stop with all of my clients, no matter where they are at, and no matter how severe or not severe their symptoms are. Because even if the symptoms haven't gotten bad, cleaning up what you're eating before they get bad will help so much in how severe they end up getting, end up becoming. And there's a great ripple effect from starting with the food too, because not only is that going to help the woman feel better in energy and better, less mood swings, but it's also going to, she's probably going to cook that way for the husband too, and that's actually going to help him out a lot too, because he might not realize he could feel a lot better just by the foods that he's eating. Unfortunately, and I just spoke to a woman this morning who had just been with her doctor, and was diagnosed with being perimenopausal, that they don't give you any tips on how to manage the symptoms naturally. And the best place you can start is with your food. Now, there's a lot of talk about supplements. Supplements are awesome, but the most important thing to always remember about supplements is they are not a stand-in for eating healthy foods, right? We got to
Mm.
start with the foods, and the supplements are supplementary, and they will be very helpful if you've made other changes in your life. And a lot of it, we start with the food, and then we start getting into a lot of daily habits: how much water you're drinking, how much you're sleeping, managing your stress levels. I mean, all of those are so very, very important in how a woman, and then obviously her significant other, will be going through all the stages of menopause.
Yeah. Every of course, everybody's menopause is different. So what want to ask you is it better to talk about it to your partner or to other people?
I mean, I am all for open communication in all situations, because here's how it works for in my experience, for myself and with the clients that I work with. When we don't get things out in the open and we keep them bottled up inside, they have a tendency to fester and become an even bigger deal than they might have been to start with. Because when they're kind of stuck in us, in our head, they just keep swirling round and round, and you feel unsupported, and it makes you feel like you're alone. And then you start to see these thoughts that you might be having as really reality, when they're just kind of thoughts in your head, and it can just start this whole spiral of negativity and of just crappiness. I can't think of a better word, to be honest. But yes, I do thoroughly recommend open lines of communication, having a support system. I mean, I think even if you, as a man, Steve, can't understand exactly what the woman is going through, because you will not feel that exact same way, I think it's important for her to feel heard,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
just to be acknowledged for what she's going through. It's not the easiest time.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Also, do you think there's a lot of stigma around menopause?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, the average age for most people is in the 50s, but like someone like me, I was in my early 40s, and it came on so suddenly for me. And the meaning I gave it, and what a lot of women do, is like, your time as a woman is over. It means you're old. It means you are like put out to pasture, right? I mean, that's when most men are trading in the wives, right? Or at least that's the way it used to be, going for the younger women. And it was like your careers were over. I mean, what menopause for so many years signified was like the beginning of the end. And that is awful. No one should ever wake up and be like, okay, well, now I'm working towards the end. Ah.
Yeah. 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 Um, and when you're doing your coaching, and how many clients really kind of like open up to you? Because to talk about their own menopause, again, is different do you find some clients kind of like are afraid to open up?
I think not too many. Most of my clients I get to know over a period of time. So they usually become friends with me on Facebook. They might come into my Facebook group. They're on my email. So they're having a lot of contact with me. So they're getting to know me and know my experience through menopause. So by the time they become an actual paying client, I mean, and the journey varies for everybody, but most of them have gotten to know me a little bit. And I don't say ask the most probing questions in the first few sessions. I do give us a chance to get more bonded and make sure, Betty, that we have established a really good relationship, because without a solid foundation of a good relationship between a coach and a client, yeah, the questions can be very invasive. And I mean, even without menopause in the mix, I mean, for me to help someone change their life, I mean, I have to know a lot. And a lot of the things I might ask, people might not have ever shared with anybody. And I have a very specific client, and she would almost every session would be like, I don't know how you get me to tell you these things that I never tell anybody. And that's, I mean, the relationship with a coach and client is very unique. It's a very intimate relationship, because I can't help you change things if I don't know the ins and the outs. And a lot of times, what drives us to make the choices we make in our life is some kind of um, a limiting belief that we might have been believing since we were kids, that we're not worthy, or we're not good enough, or that we're unattractive. I mean, there's just so many things, and those are not the easiest to have to unburden.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a question here from
Sure.
Maria, and she said, when I was growing up, my mum didn't talk to me about menopause or even periods. Um, you know, and and I when I read that, I was thinking, what? Because did your parents talk to you about menopause? And
No, menopause, no. Periods a little bit, and even the sex talk was quite amusing. Um, and no, it was. I mean, I think stop it, with the technology having become what it's become over the last 20 years, with Facebook and with everything we can find on the internet, I mean, there's a lot more information out there than we ever had access to. But when I was a child, I mean, it was still considered a taboo subject. Now, I think we've advanced huge over the last 20 years, but I do still think there is a lot that is still kind of swept under the rug and hidden behind the curtain when it comes to menopause. And I have made that a goal for myself, is to help shed more light on it. I mean, I don't know if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be saying the word menopause as many times as I do
mm,
online, but I'm doing it because I don't want anyone to suffer the way I did. I mean, even 10 years ago when I was going through it, it wasn't talked about. We didn't talk about the same things we talk about now,
mm,
on Facebook or on Instagram. I don't even think Instagram was around yet. But it was the original, the MySpace. Nobody was sharing real and honest information about what we go through, and there is so much power in knowing what to expect, and knowing how to manage it. And I could like to consider myself like a menopause master, and I want to give every woman that title. I want them to know how to master and manage their menopause, so it's not something that they are just miserable with every single day, because this is a beautiful time in our lives to be at the age where we don't care so much about what everybody thinks about us, where we take big leaps of faith in ourselves. And it can be that way, it really can. And that's what I want to show all the women out there, that it doesn't have to be this awful time period. It really
yeah,
does.
yeah. So what would you if you had a chance? to stand up in front of the whole world, what would you actually say to them?
What would I say? What I would say is that menopause is a very unique experience from woman to woman. It's going to vary depending upon so many things. But the biggest thing I want women to know is that relief and support and from all the symptoms doesn't have to come in the form of a pill, right? There is hormone replacement therapy. That is one option. But if you are willing to change the food you're eating, the habits that you do every day, you can take complete control of your menopause experience. And a doctor's not going to tell you that, but that is the absolute truth. I did it myself, and all my clients are doing it on a daily basis. And you could feel better within a week's time if you started making
Yeah.
changes with no
Why do you
side.
think? Why do you think the doctors don't tell you that?
I think because they're just not trained on, at least not here in the States. Nutrition is not a big part of our doctors' curriculum, unfortunately. Um, it's just, you have to actually go to more of an Eastern medicine doctor or a naturopath, which is kind of the same thing, alternative medicine, um, to find those doctors that are going to talk to you. But this is not just about menopause here in this country. I mean, most people that are diagnosed with prediabetes, they're not told they could actually change that diagnosis with their diet. Most of them are just threatened with insulin, or there's a lot of
Mm,
other chronic ones, IBS, any of those digestive issues
yeah,
can be managed through foods and getting to know how your body reacts to different foods, things like gout, all of those. But most doctors are going to immediately prescribe a medication. And with that medication, yes, you might get relief, but you will generally always get some kind of side effect as well. And I'm much more of a fan of trying it naturally. If it doesn't work, fine. But I haven't had anybody that hasn't had success. High blood pressure is another one that can be reduced through the foods that you're eating.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, obesity is a big part in the United States, isn't it?
It
There's a
is
great big problem.
epidemic, absolutely. And I mean, in this country, if you were to look at, I think we might have talked about this last time, but like the food additives that are allowed in this country compared to, say, what you all have in the UK. I mean, our country, they wonder, they act like they don't know where the obesity came from, but our convenience foods, we are the society of convenience here in the
Yeah,
United
yeah,
States. And
yeah,
the amount of additives and preservatives and sugars and trans fats in all of those foods are what's adding to the obesity problem.
yeah,
And
yeah,
but yet they're not willing to put the same requirements, say, that they have in the UK on the food manufacturers. Here it's like a free for all. Sure,
yeah,
add in 15 more chemicals to try to give it a longer shelf life, right? So the food manufacturer can produce more, keep it on the shelves more, make more money, but yet the people, it's got more added sugars and more adverse effects in the body. It's just awful. It's awful.
trouble is, it's a great big money spinner, isn't it?
It is all about the money. And I mean, there are a lot of people that say that's the same reasoning behind the with the medical profession, right? If a doctor prescribes a pill, well, then big pharma is making the pharmaceutical companies are making all the money, right? If the doctor tells the patient, so sorry, how to stop it. Hey, tells the patient how to manage all their symptoms naturally, the pharmaceutical companies don't make any money, right? There's
Yeah,
no money. And I mean, and I don't know exactly how it works, but I've read enough. I mean, there is some kind of kickback percentage. I don't think they use the word kickback because I think that's illegal, but where the doctors are making some kind of money for the prescriptions. I mean, it's all about the
yeah,
money. And
yeah,
the standard American diet is the same thing. That recommendation is just funding the meat industry, the dairy industry, and keeping them in business when it's not, like the American Heart Association has come out and said that meat is a carcinogenic, but yet we are still recommending to people to eat meat.
yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
Anyway,
my
Connie,
soapbox there.
do not worry. Do not worry. It's I love dogs, so don't worry about it. It's when when you got a couple of dogs, it's very difficult to handle. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Well, I always enjoy coming on here, so thank you for having me.
All right, and we'll see you again. And have a good weekend. You take care in the meantime.
All right, sounds good, Steve. Thank you.
Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.